Hey, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society Podcast, reminding you that this podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Check out all the other great podcasts on the network at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, a man for whom getting stuck in traffic was the only thing worse than sticking around for day one of nationals, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear. All too often, gun owners and gun culture are portrayed in the worst possible ways in the media. This podcast aims to counter that narrative by shining a light on the members of gun culture who are involved in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. Now, while IDPA members make up just a tiny fraction of the overall gun-owning public, I think they're a representative cross-section of that demographic, and this podcast is about them. Today, you're going to meet one of these awesome people. Before we get started, let me tell you about GlockTriggers.com. Love them or hate them, the one thing you know about Glock pistols is that they are reliable. It's what makes them so popular with competitors, law enforcement, military, and responsible armed citizens. But one of the drawbacks is that stock trigger. Well, Jeff Wilson and the folks at Glock Triggers asked themselves, how do we make them better while maintaining reliability? Using stock parts as their foundation, they've refined the interaction of the metal parts to give you smoother take-up, a cleaner break, and reduced overtravel without sacrificing safety or reliability. Recommended and used by people like Bob Vogel, Travis Haley, and Ken Hackathorn, Glock Triggers custom trigger kits come with a lifetime warranty and a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. Visit them today at GlockTriggers.com and check out the Edge, the Vogel, the Skimmer, the Guardian, and the Hackathorn trigger systems. Use the promo code from this podcast, USC20, and save 20% off of your entire order. GlockTriggers.com, the highest quality drop-in trigger system for your Glock. All right, time to get on with the show. Here is today's special guest. Our guest on today's show is Alan Motter from Quinlan, Texas. Al, welcome to the show.
Hey, Lloyd, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for coming on the show. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do for a living there in Quinlan.
What I do for a living. I am a commercial airline pilot, which has its own ups and downs. Started off in the Air Force, got out, did the commercial route, and now I'm on the back end getting ready to retire. And when I'm not doing that, half of the week, I'm home shooting in my backyard.
So did your interest in guns, where did that start? Was that something you developed as a kid, you were taught, or did that develop in the military?
As a kid, I had, when I got old enough, my dad let me have a BB gun. We were out in the country also. Mm-hmm. So, I had to have the rifle because, pistol BB guns just didn't shoot long enough to do anything, weren't powerful enough. So it was all rifle stuff. We had a 22. My dad, we'd take out and shoot occasionally. My dad wasn't really into guns, not for any particular reason. As I got older in the Air Force, pilot training buddy of mine, he was interested in guns. So we went to a gun show and bought my first Ruger, I think it's a Mark 122. Mm-hmm. And we got some black powder pistols and, got couple kits from Sears and built a Kentucky rifle, and we would go out and shoot those. It was really a long stretch after that till I bought a Glock 26 at a gun show just because, Glock, I heard about those ceramic guns and
figured you could sneak it through security.
Right. Yeah, so, I thought that would be cool. But anyway, got that and shot that just at indoor ranges for a while. Things really took off when got my CHL along with my wife and brother-in-law. And I was thinking, I just don't want to be one of these guys that has a CHL and then thinks he knows it all. I realized I didn't know anything about shooting. So taught myself to shoot here in my backyard for about a year. I think I shot for about a year, just trying to work things out by myself. Looked at some YouTube videos, some of the good instructors on how to draw and stuff, and finally took a class back in 2013 2014 from Todd L. Green up in Oklahoma with a bunch of other guys. Finished about midway through the pack of them. So I figured I taught myself pretty good since some of them have been shooting 30 years or so. And from then on, just reading books and stuff. And I read a book with Masayub, which in it he said, if you really want to get good, try competition. And I said, okay, but I had no idea where there's competition around here. And finally found Tyler Gun Club south of me. Talked to a guy at a gun store I was buying powder from, and he told me about it. So I started down there, and they kind of went away from IDPA due to some of the rule changes. And then I found Collin County, which I had no idea they were there either till you do a search and look further into it. So I went up there and been there ever since. It's a great bunch of guys and really competitive structure. There's people that just shoot for fun, and then if you want to get serious about it, you got that aspect also.
Do you remember going to that first IDPA match?
You betcha. My first IDPA match was in Tyler, and it was a classifier match. And I said, well, what's the classifier? So they told me. I said, okay. I said, well, I've taken some courses here. I was thinking this to myself, obviously.
Right.
So I'll show these guys how it's done.
And how
so
did it go?
did a win, and I came out marksman. Then I really realized, I said, okay, you don't know anything about shooting. So let's get to practicing. And that comes back, the same thought, different times during my shooting career. Just when you think you go like, I got this down, like, okay, no, you don't. Go back to practicing, where you think you got it figured out, and there's just so much more than just pointing at the target and pulling the trigger.
What's your favorite division? What gun do you compete with most often?
Well, Lloyd, I'm the outlier. I'm the Glock 19 guy. I shoot a Glock 19 in ESP, SSP, CCP, carry optics, any division I can.
Is that your carry gun too?
That's also my carry gun. And I don't shoot it for that reason. I just like shooting it. I have a Glock 34, which I bought when I remember I said, okay, I'll buy this and I'll go full gamer, Because when I started shooting IDPA, I was shooting from concealment with a t-shirt or something. And then I went like, okay, I'll get a vest. I'll get the Glock 34. I'll go full gamer, And I shot that for a while and actually developed a pain in my little finger right at the joint. I don't know what it was with the grip, but it was extremely painful. So I went back to the Glock 19 for a while, and I just went like, I just like the way this points, and I actually feel I can control the recoil better, and it's just better balance for me. So I shoot what I like to shoot, not what everybody thinks I should shoot.
Very good. What was the first sanctioned match that you competed in?
That was Texas State 2014, and went very well. I won marksman. That was my first getting wood at the state match. So very exciting because I shot for. I wasn't really nervous. In fact, I went first on the first stage, and I think I went down 0 on it. So that was a good start. Anyway, didn't continue throughout the match, but did well enough to take first place and get a bump to a sharpshooter.
Does the experience do you think as a pilot, the nerves or the does that focus that you need to fly a commercial airliner carry over to the focus that you need to calm the nerves as you're standing? Because a lot of people, that first sanction match, going first on the first stage and being, as someone who has a, first, B as the first letter of my last name, I'm always the first guy on the first stage. That first stage is always a bear for people, or seems to be, and more matches are incorporating these sort of warm-up stages.
Yes.
Does that experience of piloting an aircraft and that responsibility and that all that experience, does that transfer over into your shooting?
I would say it does for me, but I also know there are commercial pilots that get extremely nervous going for a check ride. So I think it goes more on individual how you are and how you handle stuff. Now, I don't say I don't get butterflies or I don't get a little anxiety, but I don't get to the point that I'm going to be shaking. And now I did, when I first started IDPA, anybody does. Your first
Right.
your first match, everybody's there watching. You don't want to make a total idiot of yourself. But now, you get that buzzer amnesia.
Right.
And I remember getting that in my match, going like, okay, it's, I'm doing 2, 2, and 2 on these, and then the buzzer goes off and I'm shooting 1, 1, 1, and 2. I'm like, where did that come from? What just happened?
Yep.
Or you look back, the RO says, which way you going? You go, I'm going right. And then you take off left and you go like, I have no idea why I did that. But that just comes with experience of competition. It calms, your nerves will get calm, and you'll be able to do a lot of thinking the more you do it. And things that seemed difficult before, you'll be able to revamp your whole game plan while you're in the middle of a reload that went bad,
Right. Well, see, and I think that's good to hear because, somebody who's had the responsibility of, the pressure of being able to land an aircraft with lots of people's lives in their hands is still a little, nervous at that first match and gets the same kind of, buzzer brain that everybody else does.
Oh yeah. You can't help it doing something that you're not familiar with.
Right.
It's just going to happen, and it's just something to embrace and learn from it. You can't let it take control of you. You have to take control of it, because any nervousness you feel is all self-induced.
Right.
No one cares what you do. That's what it comes down to. They care about what they do. They're just there watching. If you can provide them some comedic entertainment, they'll take it. But that's pretty much it.
Yep. I'm always happy to provide it.
Yes, Mr. No Shoot.
So how often do you find yourself practicing these days? I know I caught you dry firing tonight. How often do you dry fire, live fire, and shoot local matches? And what do you think is a good balance between those three things?
Well, since my range is out my back door, when I'm going hot and heavy, I'll do about 400 rounds a practice session, and I'll do it probably, if I'm home 4 days, I'll do it 3 out of those 4 days, if we have good weather.
Mm-hmm.
Dry fire, I used to dry fire, I would say, almost every night, and I've slacked off that a little just because I'm feeling either just I'm trying to get some other stuff done, and I'm not actually, I've got back into it, working on increasing speed and not just going through the motions, but trying to increase the speed of transitions and reloads and everything down, which is probably coming along well enough, but it's just you got to keep it up to so you don't lose it. And
then how often you shoot a local match?
Every weekend, just about. Every Saturday we have either an IDPA match. Just shot the steel match up at the M160. So pretty much every weekend there's a match to shoot just with my local my club, and around the area here. If I want to travel just a little bit, you could shoot probably 2 times a weekend.
If I asked about a particular match or a particular stage that you remember over the years that was fun, that stands out to you, a fun moment or a fun experience or a particular stage, what comes to mind? A couple of memories from the last few years of shooting.
Well, I'll tell you, I can't think of any particular stages. Our club does a real good job of putting on good stages just at just our weekend matches. A lot of them are sanctioned match quality.
Mm-hmm.
Our club is, I don't know if it's so different from others, but we don't have just one match director. Not everybody, but we have multiple match directors. So we get a full varied of very talented people that come up with stages. One sanctioned match around here is up there at the Double Tap Ranch, the Silver Dollar. Robert Porter always does a great job with props and all sorts of things to get you thinking and having to navigate the scenery up there. It's one of my favorite matches is doing the Silver Dollar.
Is that the kind of match that you or stage that you like? The kinds that make you plan it out and think, or you like the really fast sort of run and gun? Do you like lots of movers? What is your...
I like a technically difficult stage, whether it's with partials, no shoots. I don't like full open targets that really leave nothing to the imagination. That, there's no differentiation there between the different classes of shooters, because everybody could, realistically, it just comes to probably foot speed and shooting. But nothing, we're supposed to be, good shooters and stuff. So I like a match that will differentiate a little bit between the good shooters and lucky shooters, let's say.
Right. Or unlucky in my case.
Well, I say, we can always, you can always get unlucky and get a miss on a close target. And, that's just like, well, I'm better than that. Why did that happen? Trying to go too fast.
So what is it about IDPA through all these years of shooting and the effort that you put into it? What is it that makes it worth it? What is it that keeps you doing it? What is it makes you passionate about it? And what do you love about the sport?
Well, just my first, I say, when I got up to Collin County, and my first match up there, don't get to know anybody really. You're the new guy. You're trying to size up. I got the lowdown on who are the good shooters, and but you just meet people that outside of my job, no one lives out where I am and stuff, so you really don't. And I'm far away from the Metroplex area in relation, but I have a lot of friends that I met and really enjoy shooting with them, and we have a good time together. And a lot of times we plan our sanction matches. Well, who's going to go shoot what, and so I like the people, and also like the stage designs you can get with different props and stuff and shooting positions that you can't get in some of the other sports, which just makes it interesting. Sliding down
USPSA, right?
Yeah.
So what is it about, and you mentioned the shooting positions, what is it you find about IDPA that challenges you in a way that USPSA can't?
Well, we shoot from a car. You shoot from where you slide down a conveyor belt. Shooting at targets. You sit on a roller coaster type thing and slide down and shoot targets as you're sliding down the thing. You just don't find that in. There's not a mechanism for it in USPSA.
Right.
So it's just you can get some very inventive stages doing stuff like that.
Yep. So if somebody shows up or is thinking about coming out to a match and they're worried about, well, I don't really know anybody, I don't want to embarrass myself. I don't know whether I'm good enough. Maybe I need more practice. What would you tell somebody who's thinking about getting involved in the sport, or maybe they hear this podcast, or they meet you and they hear about your shooting and they say, yeah, I'd like to do that, but what do you tell them about IDPA to convince them that they just, they've got to just come out and do it?
Well, I tell them my story about how I embarrassed myself at my first match and didn't know anybody. And yes, I wasn't good enough for me, but I was good enough for everybody else because, as I said before, no one cares how good you are. They're worried about how good they are. But yeah, that's a common. I was the same way. I wanted to practice more till I felt I was, good enough. And it's just gun handling skills. You want to be safe. That's pretty much it. If you have a mentor, someone that can take you up and show you the ropes. If you don't, once you get there, like I say, I tried to take a new shooter if they're on my squad and, explain to them, because actually it's the, round count and what you load in your magazine, that if no one explains it to you, guys will just load like, okay, I need 6 rounds, so I'm going to load 6 rounds here. And then I'll be at slide lock and I'll be, okay, no, you can't do that. So I try to take any new shooter and just explain, and I'll give them some information. I'll say, just take it, or just tell me to shut up because it's too much for you. And you're just, you're just worried. I say, just be safe. Just have fun. It'll all come. But yeah, just show up. That's what I did. It did take, it takes a lot to get over that fear of the unknown. And, because you're going into a bunch of guys that know more than you do. But turns out, man, it's a great bunch of guys, and they'll help you. All you have to do is ask. Sometimes you don't even have to ask. They'll just tell you what to do.
Yep.
And that's one good thing about IDPA is for a beginner, it's less intimidating than other shooting sports because look, tell you what to do: shoot here, go over here, and shoot.
Right.
Have fun.
And you can just bring the gear that you've got and that you already carry, and you don't have to be concerned about keeping up with keeping up with the next guy, and just go and have a good time.
And it doesn't matter if you don't have the gear and or it's wrong. Someone will probably have the right gear for you.
Yep. Well, Al Motter, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right. Look forward to seeing you soon. All right, that's all we've got for you today. Thank you so much to our special guest for coming on the show. If you know somebody in the IDPA community who deserves some recognition, I'd love to talk to them. Send me an email at Lloyd, Lloyd, at unloadpodcast.com. Check out the show notes for today's episode and listen to past episodes at unloadpodcast.com. And if you like what you hear on the show and you'd like to support us, help keep the lights on, pay the bills, we would love your support. Visit patreon.com/unload and make a small monthly contribution to help continue what we're doing here. Tune in again next week for another edition of Unload and Show Clear.